They called it the Phantom Express, a train that appeared on the abandoned railway tracks outside of town at midnight. The story went that if you boarded it, you'd never return. Most thought it was just a local myth, told to keep kids away from the dangerous tracks. Amara didn't believe in ghost stories. As a journalist desperate for a gripping feature, she decided to investigate the legend herself, armed with a camera and recorder. She arrived at the derelict station just before midnight. The air was thick with fog, and the moon cast a pale light over the rusted tracks. As the clock struck 12, a low, mournful whistle pierced the silence. Amara's heart raced as a train emerged from the mist, its black steel body gleaming as though it had been polished yesterday. There was no conductor, no passengers, just an empty train that hissed to a stop before her. The door slid open with a metallic groan. Amara hesitated, her instincts screaming to run, but curiosity won. She stepped aboard. The door's ceiling shut behind her. Inside, the train was eerily pristine. The seats were upholstered in red velvet, and the air smelled faintly of perfume and smoke. Amara set her recorder on a nearby seat and began snapping photos. Suddenly, the train jerked forward, throwing her off balance. The windows blurred with motion, though the tracks outside had been unused for decades. "Hello," she called out, her voice echoing in the empty carriage. No answer. She moved to the next car, which was starkly different. The air was cold, and the seats were torn, their stuffing spilling out like entrails. A single lantern flickered at the end of the aisle as she approached. She noticed passengers, silent figures slumped in the seats. Their heads hung low, and their clothes were decades out of fashion. Amara felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Excuse me," she whispered, reaching out to touch one of the figures. Its head snapped up. Clouded eyes stared into hers, and its mouth opened in a soundless scream. Amara stumbled back, the lantern flickering violently. The other passengers turned their heads in unison, their empty gazes fixed on her. The train shuddered, and the lights dimmed. A voice crackled through the intercom, low and distorted. "Next stop, the end of the line." Panic set in as Amara raced through the cars, each one more decrepit than the last. The passengers were everywhere now, their spectral forms blocking her path, their whispers growing louder. "Stay with us. You belong here. There's no going back." She finally reached the engine room, but it was empty. The controls were ancient, covered in dust and cobwebs. Outside the window, there was no landscape, just a swirling void of black and white. Amara screamed into the recorder, desperate to document her final moments. "This is Amara Evans. If anyone finds this, I'm on the Phantom Express." The train screeched to a halt. She was thrown to the floor, and when she looked up, the doors had opened instead of a station. She saw a sprawling graveyard, each tombstone with the name of a passenger shed seen on the train end. At the end of the row was one with her name on it. Before she could react, the passengers descended upon her, their cold hands dragging her toward the door. Her screams echoed into the void as the train disappeared into the mist. Days later, her recorder was found on the tracks, still running. The last words were faint but unmistakable. "The train always comes back for one more."